The Texas Gulf Regional Headquarters didn't look like a failing branch. The parking lot was full, the lobby was bright and modern, and the receptionist barely glanced at me when I introduced myself as temporary compliance support. The badge printer spit out my laminated identity in less than a minute. Whitfield Consumer Brands, stamped in bold under the word contractor. Martin Grayson didn't even bother standing when I entered his office. He was a tall man with a permanent smirk, sleeves rolled halfway as if he'd been working too hard to care about appearances. "So you're the support," he said, the pause heavy with condescension. "We've done everything possible here. You'll find nothing worth your time, but I suppose HQ needs to look busy." I smiled like I'd been told to expect this kind of welcome. "Just here to help smooth the paperwork before quarter end," I said. My voice was light, harmless. He returned to his laptop, the conversation dismissed. The rest of the morning was a tour of departments: finance, procurement, logistics, each one giving me the same polite but detached greeting, the kind reserved for people they assumed wouldn't last more than a week. I kept my head down, skimming through the initial data feeds. The reported losses in the last 3 years made no sense against the booming national market I'd studied. Sales in this region should be thriving. Instead, they were bleeding. After lunch, I ducked into the copy room to scan a set of distribution invoices. The hum of the machine filled the narrow space. That's when I noticed him, a junior accountant I'd seen in the finance bullpen earlier. He glanced over his shoulder before stepping closer, a flash drive half hidden in his palm. "I think you should see this," he murmured, voice low. His hand trembled slightly as he extended it toward me. Before I could reach for it, the door swung open. Martin's voice cut through the air. "Here you are, Alex. I've been looking for those freight reports." Alex's expression shifted instantly. He shoved the flash drive into his pocket and nodded quickly. "Yes, sir. Just making copies." Martin gave me a perfunctory nod before turning to Alex. "Come on, we're late." The two of them left, the door swinging shut behind them, the scent of Martin's cologne lingering in the air. I stood there, the copier still spitting out pages, my mind already turning over what could be on that drive and what it meant if someone here was willing to risk handing it to me. By the time the office emptied out, the fluorescent lights felt harsher, humming in the stillness. I stayed behind under the pretense of catching up. But the truth was, I needed quiet. With the internal system open, I started matching distributor invoices against the official sales reports. It didn't take long for the inconsistencies to jump out. According to the invoices, certain high-volume products were selling in record numbers, but the official reports showed barely half those quantities. On paper, the branch was underperforming. In reality, it was thriving. The next morning, I brought it up casually to Martin over coffee in the break room. He didn't flinch. "Logistics overruns," he said smoothly. "Damaged inventory. Shrink happens." Then he smiled as if we were talking about the weather. That answer might have satisfied a casual auditor. But I kept digging. Late that afternoon, I followed a digital breadcrumb, a mislabeled link in the finance server to a hidden folder. Inside were spreadsheets with unaltered sales figures, matching the distributor numbers. They were clean, consistent, and damning. Then, right before my eyes, rows began to vanish, one by one. The cells went blank. I froze, watching the cursor flicker in a column I wasn't touching. I moved to copy the files, but a warning window flashed. Access denied. The folder disappeared entirely, replaced by the standard quarterly loss report. A chill crept down my spine. I wasn't alone in this system. Before I could react, my monitor went black. The computer hummed, then restarted, as if someone had yanked the cord and plugged it back in. When the login screen appeared, my credentials worked, but the finance directory was scrubbed clean. I sat back, forcing my breathing to slow. Whoever was inside had full administrative control and enough confidence to erase evidence in real time. The copier in the corner clicked on suddenly, spitting out a single sheet I hadn't sent to print. It was blank except for one line, centered, "Stay in your lane." I slipped the page into my folder without a word, already thinking about my next move. 2 nights later, I got a text from an unknown number P2 garage, level 4, 8:15 p.m. Come alone. I almost ignored it, but the timing was too perfect. The workday had ended hours ago, the building half in darkness. I took the elevator down, the hum of fluorescent lights giving way to the low echo of my footsteps in the garage. Naomi Brooks was leaning against a concrete pillar, arms crossed. I'd seen her in the hall's senior auditor, the kind of professional who moved with quiet precision. "You've been asking the wrong people the right questions," she said without greeting. "That's dangerous here." She handed me a thick envelope. Inside were photocopies, contracts, vendor invoices, payment approvals. Each one had 2 versions, the original and the altered. "I keep hard copies off-site," she said. "Everything in the system can be wiped in seconds. Originals, not so easy." I flipped through the stack. The discrepancies were glaring inflated prices, altered delivery numbers, forged signatures. "Martin's not doing this alone." She continued. "His inner circle includes legal counsel. That means any formal complaint will die before it leaves the building, and the person who files it, their career dies with it." I met her eyes. "You tried before." Her jaw tightened. "Last year, I sent a packet to headquarters. Weeks later, I got the dismissal letter, said the case was closed, reviewed personally by Victor Whitfield. The name hit harder than I expected. You're sure it was his signature?" She reached into her bag, pulled out the letter. I've seen Victor's real signature on hundreds of documents. This one, a poor imitation. Whoever forged it wanted me to believe the CEO himself shut me down. The weight of what she was saying settled between us. If someone was willing to fake the CEO's approval, the rot ran deeper than one corrupt VP. Naomi's gaze was steady. "If you're going to keep digging, you can't do it alone." I slid the envelope into my bag, already feeling the line between caution and commitment disappear. The next morning, I traded my quiet corner in compliance for a desk wedged between procurement and logistics. No one questioned the switch. Martin probably assumed I'd been shunted there to get out of the way. I played the part, answering phones, making coffee runs, and carrying stacks of paperwork like I belonged to someone else's to-do list. In the weekly operations meeting, Martin dominated the conversation, running through budget slides like a man presenting gospel. When I asked a question about freight cost variances, he didn't miss a beat. "You're just an assistant," he said, smiling at the room as if to invite their laughter. "Stay out of this." I felt the heat crawl up my neck but kept my expression neutral. Let him think he'd put me in my place. The less threatening I looked, the more he'd slip. That afternoon, I was tasked with cross-referencing delivery receipts, buried in a stack of invoices. A name caught my attention: Blue Star Freight. The charges were outrageous, triple the industry average, and the vendor file was thin. Just a post office box and a generic email. A quick search in a public corporate registry turned up the owner's name, Graham Stokes, Martin's brother-in-law. I made a photocopy and slid it under a stack of unrelated documents in my drawer. It was a thread, and if I pulled it right, it could unravel everything. Later, Naomi found me at the coffee machine. "We've got maybe 2 weeks before quarterly numbers are locked," she murmured, pretending to stir sugar. "Once that happens, the doctored figures become the official record clean as far as auditors are concerned. 2 weeks. That wasn't much time to dismantle a scheme years in the making, and with Martin watching everyone like a hawk, a single wrong move could expose us before we were ready. I returned to my desk, fingers hovering over the keyboard, already mapping out how to follow the money without tipping off the wrong eyes. Somewhere in those files was the path from Blue Star Freight straight into Martin's accounts. I just had to find it before he made it vanish. The clock had started ticking, and every hour that passed was another chance for Martin to make the evidence disappear forever. Naomi and I spent the next 3 nights moving like ghosts through the building, copying files onto encrypted drives, then uploading them to off-site storage. We split the data into multiple fragments, each labeled innocuously, so that, even if someone found one, it would look meaningless. Every piece was a thread, together. They could unravel the whole scheme. By the 4th morning, Martin made his move. I felt it before I heard it, the sideways glances in the hallway, the murmured conversations that went silent when I walked by. In the break room, a procurement clerk leaned in to whisper, "They're saying you lied on your resume, that you padded your experience to get this job." I kept my face unreadable, though my pulse quickened. Later. Naomi intercepted me outside HR. An anonymous complaint just hit their desk. She said, "It claims you mishandled confidential files." HR forwarded it to security. By noon, my system access was revoked. My badge still opened doors, but every login attempt ended with a red banner, "Access denied." The investigation was frozen in place, and Martin knew it. I spent the rest of the day doing the kind of harmless busy work no one questions, organizing vendor files, delivering memos. Inside, I was calculating how much time we'd lost. Without system access, I couldn't pull fresh data or monitor real-time transactions. That evening, Naomi called me from her car. It's worse. The junior accountant, Alex, the one with the flash drive. He's gone. HR says he resigned this morning, but I saw the exit paperwork. He's got a severance package tied to a strict non-disclosure agreement. I stared out the window of my apartment, the city lights smearing in the glass, with Alex bound by a gag order and my access cut off. Martin had cut 2 of my strongest lifelines in a single day. He's making sure we can't connect the last dots, Naomi added. And if we don't move soon, the quarter closes and all this becomes permanent. I tightened my grip on the phone. Then we find another way in. I said, "If he thinks this stops us, he's wrong." Naomi's voice was steady. "Meet me tomorrow. I have an idea." And just like that, the next phase began forming in my mind before I even hung up. Naomi's idea took us to a diner off the interstate, the kind of place where no one looks twice at 2 people sharing a booth and a pot of bad coffee. Our contact, a veteran supplier named Carl Henderson, slid into the seat across from me. His hands were rough, his eyes the guarded kind that came from decades of dealing with corporate games. "I've been with Whitfield for 23 years. He began 5 years ago. Everything was straightforward. Then Martin came in, and suddenly I'm paying an extra storage fee every quarter just to keep my contract. How much I asked? 40 grand a year. Off the books, always in cash, always through a third party. Last time, they sent some freight guy I'd never met." He reached into a worn briefcase and pulled out a folder. Inside was a stamped complaint form dated 2 years ago. The grievance was clear extortion, irregular invoicing, and suspicious vendor substitutions. At the bottom, in bold, was reviewed and closed, Victor Whitfield, my father's name. I traced the signature with my eyes. It was meant to be his, the long sweep on the W, the tight loop on the D, but something was off. The proportions were wrong, the pen pressure inconsistent. "Mind if I take this?" I asked. Carl nodded. "I kept the original. They've probably got a clean, fake version in their files." He lingered for a moment, his voice dropping lower. "When my complaint died, 2 other suppliers stopped getting renewals. One went bankrupt within months. The message was clear: keep your head down. Later that night, Naomi and I compared the signature to verified documents I had from years back. Side by side, the forgery was glaring. Whoever signed it was skilled enough to fool someone unfamiliar, but I knew my father's hand. The realization settled like a stone in my stomach. This wasn't just about hiding Martin's fraud. If the fake signature had been used before, it could be part of a pattern, one designed to make it look like Victor himself ignored or condoned the wrongdoing, which meant if this exploded, it wouldn't just take Martin down, it could take my father with him. Naomi's eyes met mine over the desk. Then we're not just cleaning up a branch, we're walking into a war, and for the first time, I understood the battlefield was much bigger than Texas. The email from headquarters hit everyone's inbox at 6:42 a.m. Emergency performance review, Texas Gulf region. Attendance mandatory for all senior staff. No explanation, no agenda. By the time I arrived, Martin's door was closed, blinds drawn. Through the slats, I caught glimpses of him rehearsing slides charts splashed with red losses, bullet points about market downturns, and glossy photos of community outreach programs. It was the kind of smoke and mirrors presentation that could make a hemorrhage look like a paper cut. Naomi and I took over a small conference room, spreading our own arsenal across the table. Every contract, invoice, and payment record was tagged, time-stamped, and matched to an original hard copy. We'd taken the extra step of having them notarized a chain of custody so airtight it could survive any corporate legal spin. Once it starts, don't let him control the narrative, Naomi said, sliding a USB drive toward me. This is our clean copy. Keep it on you. 10 minutes before the board was due to connect in, I walked past Martin's office. His phone lit up on the desk. I didn't mean to read it, but the preview flashed in bold before my eyes. She's not who she says she is, and she's not alone. Martin's face shifted when he saw the message. For the briefest moment, I saw calculation flicker into something closer to fear. Then it was gone, replaced by the same smooth confidence he always wore in front of a crowd. We filed into the main conference room. The air was thick with forced cordiality. Board members appeared on the wall monitors, their faces framed by tidy home offices or skyline backdrops. Martin opened with his best concerned leader tone, walking them through the supposed struggles of the region: freight delays, labor shortages, fluctuating demand. I waited, letting him spin his story until the numbers on his slides drifted too far from reality. Naomi caught my eye and gave the slightest nod. My hand tightened around the USB in my pocket. Martin clicked to his final slide, a smiling photo of the team, as if goodwill could hide the rot beneath. I leaned forward in my chair, ready to cut straight through the veneer. Martin's voice was smooth, his gestures confident as he closed his presentation. In short, the Texas Gulf region's losses are a reflection of market forces beyond our control, he said, letting the words settle like an official verdict. I leaned forward. That's not accurate. The room went still. Every face on the monitors shifted toward me. Martin's brow tightened. Excuse me. Your freight costs, I said evenly. They've increased 218% in 2 years, all routed through Blue Star Freight, a shell company owned by your brother-in-law. Vendor records, payment histories, tax filings, they all point to the same conclusion. His smile thinned. You are just an assistant. Stay in your lane. I didn't move. And the altered quarterly reports, the forged CEO signature on whistleblower complaints, the off-books storage fees from long-term suppliers. Should I keep going? He slammed his hand on the table. Get out, now. I rose without a word, walking to the door at a measured pace, in the hallway. I pulled out my phone, scrolled to a contact I hadn't called in years, and pressed dial. Dad, I said when he answered, my voice calm. "Walk in now." Seconds later, the double doors opened. Victor Whitfield stepped inside, his presence sucking the air out of the room. He didn't look at me, not yet. His gaze swept over Martin, then the board members on the monitors. "Continue," he said, his tone flat. I placed the evidence packet in the center of the table, USB drive on top. Not allegations, facts, verified documents, notarized chain of custody. These losses aren't market-driven. They're manufactured. As I spoke, I saw the shift a few board members stiffening, others glancing down, calculating their exit strategies. Victor waited until I was done. Then, with surgical precision, he turned to the screens. "We've been tracking internal leaks for months. This fraud ring reaches into corporate legal, and 2 of the seats on this call." The color drained from more than one face. Security entered quietly, moving first to Martin, then to the 2 board members whose screens went dark as the call disconnected. Victor finally looked at me. "Stay," he said. "We're not finished." When the conference room finally emptied, Victor gestured for me to follow him to his private office. The glass walls gave a panoramic view of the city, but neither of us looked outside. He closed the door and sat behind his desk, studying me like he was still deciding which version of me he was speaking to, the daughter he hadn't seen in years, or the investigator who'd just gutted his regional VP in front of the board. "You should take the role," he said finally. "Regional VP. It's yours if you want it." It would have been the neat ending, replace the villain. Step into his office. Wear the crown. But that wasn't why I came back. "No," I said. His eyes narrowed. "No, I don't want Martin's job. I want my own division, independent, answering only to the board's audit committee. No CEO sign-off, not even yours." His hands folded slowly. "That would give you authority over every branch, every region. That's the point. I can't do my job if I'm boxed in by the same structure that let this rot spread." For a long moment, the only sound was the quiet hum of the air system. Then he leaned back, the faintest curve of a smile tugging at his mouth. "You're more like me than you realize." "I'm not," I said, and I meant it. It took 48 hours, a flurry of legal drafts, and more than one tense call with the board. But they signed off. The new division would operate with complete investigative autonomy, budget guaranteed for 5 years. Naomi was my first hire, second in command, officially titled Deputy Director of Corporate Integrity. She accepted without hesitation, and for the first time since this started, I felt the ground under my feet steady. Victor came to my new office the day the signage went up. "I'm proud of you," he said, "even if it means I can't control you. That's probably healthy for both of us," I replied. After he left, I sat at my desk, sorting through the first wave of priority cases. One file stood out sealed, marked for my eyes only. I broke the tape and found a slim folder, the header reading New York HQ, Revenue Division. Inside, a single sticky note in block letters. "If you go after this, you'll make enemies at every level." I read it twice, then closed the folder and set it neatly on top of the stack. The skyline outside was beginning to burn with sunset, the city alive with possibilities. "Good," I said quietly, a smile touching my lips. "Let's start there."